Alright guys, we are back with another video on the Gen 5 Ice Bear Maddog. So while I have the CVT cover off and I plan on replacing some parts in here, might as well update you guys on what all has changed since the last video. I did end up replacing the exhaust because the stock one on the inside was actually rattling. Here it is. So this is the OEM exhaust, and as you can tell, it started coming apart. So obviously I took this apart. This was in the stage of me removing the baffles out of it and all that. I ended up just replacing it because the exhaust bracket broke anyway, so I was like, well, if we're going to keep adding to this, let's just go ahead and replace it with another one. Here is your non-shaky Amazon replacement. This was $37 and it came to my house within a day. The only thing that I had to complain about was this bracket was meant for an upside down, so all I did was basically force it to fit on here like this. You can tell because there's a gap, but overall it works. Same setup as the other one, has the little inner baffle, outer baffle. I kept the inner baffle out, and the outer baffle is still in. It still runs good. Also, the NCY decompression tube. That was a nice little mod, like a little 17mm, pops it into the crankcase, and then you just route it, preferably up. Replace the tail light, so that way it's not hanging on by zip ties anymore. I didn't over tighten this one, thankfully. We got the unipod filter, which would mean we have the slide carb. Alright, so I did end up caving after I bought the NCY CDI, the new plug, and the Mikuni DF44 fuel pump. I was like, let's go ahead and start changing a little bit more of it. So I got the 28mm carb. If you look, it looks just like another carb. Can't say what it is, but looks very similar. Correct. This is a 28mm carb. Good old eBay carb. This was 45 bucks. I did have to get the angled flange, which, if you don't know, is like a 45-degree angle. This is from SSPG. I'm still utilizing the stock intake. It just popped the uni filter on it. Also, I have the NCY intake manifold for a 28. I'm just using these studs temporarily because I need to get new bolts for it, but they work good. But with all that being said, I did have the Mikuni. Go to the back of the truck. So that is the stock vacuum fuel pump over there. That kept failing at high RPMs, so I decided to replace that with the Mikuni fuel pump. I just chopped one of the tabs off so it sit flush, but this thing already failed super quick. It actually started pulling gas through the vacuum port, that was not cool. So I said, you know what, that vacuum pump sucked, this vacuum pump failed, which ironically my last one lasted a lot longer and was better. Maybe it was just a pump, I don't know. But I got sick of the vacuum pump setup and went with an electric pump. This electric pump is about 2.5 to 3 gallons per hour, or 3 psi, I think is what the cutoff rate is. Still have the utilized fuel filter before, and then I'm using the step down filter to step it down from 5/16 to 3/16. And it's been working pretty good. If you guys don't know, I got this whole setup minus that filter. That filter probably would add like an $8 to it. But this filter, or this fuel filter, or fuel pump, I should say, it's a simple wire job. It was like 25 bucks on Amazon. You'll have to get another barb fitting, or you could use the 5/16 and just do 2 step downs. One of these down there and one of these up here. But you can see it's 5/16 hose. And then this is the 3/16 hose that the normal GY6 takes. This is helix line, and then this is this, and then it goes back into factory line because I didn't have a hose long enough. But with the vacuum pump, like I said, it was 25 bucks for the pump. Obviously the hosing, whatever kind of hosing you want to get. I went with this filter because I like seeing the glass filters. I had one on my last setup. I could have gone with black or blue but yeah, this pump is sweet. Literally, all you gotta do, let me show you the wiring quick. The wiring, negative, which is right here on the head, that's for ground, and the other one goes into my tail light for constant power, which is the black wire, and this loom right here, black wire, goes to power, which is key power. So let me show you. And this thing will stay pumping to hold pressure up top. That way when this carb starts drop and float, it'll just refill it. Super nice. It's actually pretty quiet for what it is. They make a mounting kit for it, but I just mounted it right here. Obviously it tells you which way it's going, but this was actually a super nice mod. No more crazy cranking. This thing just hits it. Give it a second to refill everything, and then you're good to go. And then even when you turn it off, like I said, I need to redo the setup a little bit more, because it still delivers fuel, but it's a little bit tighter than I'd like. It does have like a little air bubble, but that air bubble is like instant. It goes away. So that is definitely a nice mod. So if you guys are thinking about the Pulsar unit from Rolling Wrench, that's like I think $250 for the Honda pump and the Pulsar unit. Or you could do the Amazon unit, which is a little bit bigger and bulkier, but it works great, guys. I'm not gonna lie. And the total setup, if you add in everything like the foot of fuel hose I had to get, the filter, the little barb fitting at the end, all of it came out to like $55. If you add that in, it was like $60. So definitely a worthwhile mod, and it'll get rid of all your constant wide open throttle pulls that start bogging out. It eliminates all that. It's sweet. But besides that, I am still trying to tune in the idle circuit on this carb, but I'm also, when I'm driving it, so right now with me being in York, Pennsylvania, this circuit setup that I have going on right now is a 32 pilot and a 120 main, and that's with just the center portion taken out, the unipod filter on the stock intake, 28mm carb, stock everything else. So on that setup, if you're in an area like me, I think I'm about 450 feet above sea level. That is going to be a decent starting point if you got, depending. Obviously, I'll have to mess with the air mixture screw a little bit more to try to fine tune it in. But right now I can hit 57 reliably. So that is bringing me to this video. So as you can tell, I have the CVT cover off. I'm in the CVT. I'm not going to make a video on how to take it off because it's just a bunch of 8mm bolts minus the 110 and the 110 from the Kickstarter. I'm going to get in here and start changing this up. As you can tell, it's not really utilizing the Variator all the way. I did switch out weights, which stock for the Gen 5 were 14 grams. I did a little half and half in there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this Variator off, and I'm going to replace it with NCY. I've been kind of going like with an NCY setup on this bike. I'm not sure if I'm going to use NCY though for the big bore, or if I'm going to use rolling wrench because I like the forged piston setup. But yeah, back into this. Okay, so in order to do any of this, obviously you might want to have your bike make some kind of decent power. So I would definitely do a carb, pop that middle piece out of the exhaust and run a uni. You should be making decent enough power then that this will come in handy. And this is after you've already tried everything with weights and the Variator. If you don't know, that the stock Variator is not 115mm. This is 115mm, the drive face. This is a 115mm, so realistically I didn't need to buy this. I could have used that still, but I might as well have a nice clean look. And I think the ramping on the NCY is slightly different than OEM. But in order to do this, you will need to take this nut off. This nut is a 17mm nut, which an impact comes in handy to pull that off. There is a tool that basically goes in here and holds it, so you can hold on to it and then crank it over. But that's the simpler way. That's actually the main reason I bought that gun, ironically enough, and it's still kicking for every other thing I do. But I'm going to go ahead, rip that Variator off and the drive face off, and we're going to get to it. Alright, so we have the stock drive face off. As you can tell, it's not even coming anywhere close to reaching the top. You can tell by the heat lines, it stops about right there. Same thing with the Variator, it's not coming all the way up, it's hitting to about right there. So realistically, I probably could have just shove on an 842 belt, because 835 belts are what these things come with from the good old factory. But I'm going to try the Variator combo to see if I can get the ramping and everything different. I do have an 842 belt, but I'm trying to see what I can get with. I I might actually switch the belt. Hang on. Alright, so you guys can see 835, 2030. I think I'm going to swap out for the 842 belt as well when I do this variator change. I'm also going to give you guys a quick tip. When you go to try to pull this, so this is how this works. It slides in and slides out, all that. But when you go to take this off, grab it by the back. Because if you don't, this whole thing is just going to fall apart. So you're going to want to try to kind of grab it like a sandwich. Don't worry about that centerpiece. But like grab it like a sandwich, because this thing will try to come off. Okay, so we have the whole thing ripped apart. This is going to be your back with your little pieces. Obviously, you have your roller weights. Like I said, these are all 14 grams. Those are 12s. I had these in there, and it was an average of 13, 12, 3 12s, 3 14s, 13 gram is average rotational mass. Here we have the two variators side by side. So you can tell by the ramping just off the bat. This one kind of hits like a wall, and this one allows it to keep going up. This one doesn't do that. Also, you can tell by, not really much, you can tell by with the hats, they look about the same. Drive faces, they're actually about the same concave, so not much is going to change on the face side of it. It's going to be more changing on the fact that it's going to allow those ramps to change, because you can tell it comes even all the way up to here, so it allows the roller to try to hit up here. The drive face itself, though, see if I can get this centered perfectly. You can tell that it is slightly bigger. Just slightly, not much, but just slightly bigger. But that slightly bigger is going to also help you out on your top speed. So, let me go ahead and swap all this stuff in here, and we'll get back to it. And there you go. Now we got the NCY drive face on, NCY variator with the 14 gram weights, along with the 842 belt. The 842 belt is just slightly longer than the 835, obviously. 842, 835. Normally this is going to be for top speed, and that's mainly what I'm more or less looking for. I'm looking for the mid-60s right now before I do a gear up in the back here. But just wanted to touch base with you guys on this. Also, when you take your cover bolts off, make sure you try to keep them organized, because it's not going to be a fun time if you try to send this bolt into this hole, or this one. Won't really matter because it's going to start hitting the starter. But yeah, always keep track of your bolts, that way you know. But I'm going to throw this thing back together, do some more test rides on it, and I will comment under the video on the top speed for this setup in general. That way you guys have a good idea what it's sitting at with stock 150 motor and the NCY variator drive face and an 842 belt with a 28mm carb with the center piece taken out of the exhaust and the uni filter. It'll give you a good setup on that. This one plays a role in it, but only for long runs. Alright, this is going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'll help you out. Alright, peace, guys. Thanks for watching.